Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting from Monday, February 13th. Mr. Clerk, would you lead us in the Pledge of the Flag?
Yes, ma'am. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. I'd like to have a moment of silence. Longtime Littleton Board of Health member Peter Casanari has passed away last week. He served on the Board of Health for over 48 years and was a dedicated citizen to the town of Littleton. Moment of silence, please.
Also a veteran.
That's right, Navy veteran.
Thank you. Okay. We've got a jam-packed agenda tonight. We're going to start off with 6:30, organization, Pledge of Allegiance, read mail. 6:35, three items under town boards. Housing Authority, notice of vacancy. Council on Aging, Elder Human Services, Transportation Gifts Fund, and Conservation Commission, Planning Board, two different properties to talk about under that one. 7 p.m., open space properties. First up, Smith property on Wickham Ave. Second up, Mass DOT surplus land on Boxborough Road. Third up, Joyce Williams property, 31 Boxborough Road. And lastly, Home Scout Properties, Crestview. 7:30, public input, members updates, selectmen goal updates. 7:35, May 1st, 2017, annual and special town meetings, open warrants, set closing, insert articles. 8 p.m., fiscal year 2018 operating budget, capital improvements plan. 8:20, Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget. First up, Police and Fire Chiefs adopt public safety strategic plans. Second up, Director of Public Works, Selectmen goals, updates on roadway improvement plan and the Littleton Sewer Strategic Plan. And last is Treasurer for Narcissus Road Tax Title Properties. 8:50, minutes approval, and then at 8:55, the board will exit for executive session, collective bargaining strategy. All right, so let's get started with mail.
Madam Chair, a few items. First, we have, I'll take them in the order that I put them in the slide. We have, last week it was the SAFER grant. This week it's the SAFE grant. I don't know, is there a SAFEist grant?
Let's hope so.
But we have an award of the Student Awareness of Fire Education, SAFE grant, and Senior SAFE for the fire department. I think this might be the third or fourth year in a row that we've received those grant awards, so that's great. The Attorney General has approved the bylaws that were passed by the November town meeting, amending the Administration and Finance bylaws. And I've added two here. It wasn't in your packet, but we got it over the weekend, that the Master Plan Update Committee has issued, the consultant has issued a draft set of recommendations for the master plan, which are available online. If you go to the homepage of the town's website, just follow the links. The information's available at the master plan website. The committee meets Wednesday night. And looking for comments, you can email them to masterplan@littletonma.org, and that's asked by February 24th.
Thanks for adding that, Keith. Excellent. All right, let's dig into town boards. First up, Housing Authority, notice of vacancy.
We gave you an update at your last meeting when town council was here, and the development that's occurred is that our town council's opinion is now what the state is going by as to how do you handle vacancy on the housing authority. That we reviewed last time that the law was changed in 2014 to reduce the number of elected members from 4 to 3. We have 3, so we cannot fill a 4th by election. Another part of the law provides for a housing authority tenant to be elected to the board. And so the fix that was arrived at was, and it was issued in a notice, guidelines by DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development of the Commonwealth, essentially saying that if you have an elected member, they can, and their term runs out, one option is they can continue to serve until their successor is qualified. That is, they can't stand for election, but they could continue to serve until DHCD issues regulations on how do you fill it with a tenant. Failing that, if you do have a vacancy, as we do, then, as our town council suggested, you can use Chapter 41, Section 11, and fill it on a temporary basis by appointment. And with notice from the board, the remaining members of the board, it can be by joint appointment. We did get such a notice within 30 days, which would entitle the remaining members of the Housing Authority Board to join with the selectmen to fill the vacancy. Since the law directs that it be with a tenant, you can choose to fill it with a tenant. And by following your procedures, we could, you'd give notice, we'd meet a month from now, and if there are, in this case, limit, rather than just to the whole town at large, all voters, you could limit it to Housing Authority tenants to apply and make an appointment. So the motion, which is sort of long, goes on all of those procedural hurdles in order to carry that out. But score one for Tom Harrington in his, in the opinion that he rendered for us when we asked the question.
Very good, makes sense, question?
So, they still need to run in May?
No,
No.
because there's no election. That we have, the law was changed in August of 2014 to reduce from 4 to 3 the number of elected positions, sort of leaving in limbo what happens to the fourth. And up until a week ago, DHCD was advising town clerks to just have them run for election, which our town council pointed out was contrary to the law. So DHCD has since said you can fill it by the temporary appointment thing under 4111 that's proposed in this motion. And that they would continue to serve either until the expiration of the term, which would be May 2020, because Barbara McRae's term would have otherwise expired then, or until an earlier date if the DHCD issues regulations that describe how you fill it by appointment.
So what if we get no tenant to run or sign up? Then we gotta go through the process again for opening up the town-wide?
You could do, well, since the law says it's to be a tenant,
Just leave
we're
it
sort of
vacant?
in the preliminarily, from my discussions with Elisa Larrabee, the executive director of the Housing Authority, that there are multiple individuals who
good.
are tenants who are interested.
That's good.
And she's been reaching out and to them and just
Coach 'em up.
explaining what all of this is. And so I think we'll see interest from multiple individuals.
Nice.
Even if there is existing interest from those that happen to be in the know, I think it's incumbent on us or the Housing Authority to let all their tenants know.
Oh, indeed.
Formally.
Absolutely, yes, that's absolutely correct, that we would notify all of the Housing Authority tenants of the availability,
Nice.
yeah.
We're the breaking ground again, town of Littleton.
The Littleton rule.
That's right.
Ready for a motion, Madam
Indeed.
Chair? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote as follows. Relative to the filling of a vacancy on Littleton Housing Authority, LHA, Board, created by the resignation of Barbara McRae. Thank you, Barbara, by the way, for all your service. You've done a fantastic job with the seniors and on the Housing Authority. Effective January 9, 2017. 1, to receive the notice of said vacancy given by the remaining members of the LHA Board received on February 8, 2017 pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, subsection 11. 2, to determine that said vacancy shall be filled with an LHA tenant in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 121B, subsection 5-5A, for the term expiring May 2020 until a new member
Or until.
or until a new member is qualified under regulations issued by Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, whichever comes first. 3, to give a notice to the remaining LHA board members that the Board of Selectmen shall convene a joint meeting with the intent to fill the vacancy by joint appointment to be made on Monday, March 13, 2017, at 7:15 PM. And 4, to invite interested LHA tenants to apply for said appointment, be interviewed at the joint meeting, said joint meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Council on Aging, we have a donation from the Eleanor Cooper Estate.
Yeah, we have two donations, in fact, both to the Transportation Fund. That there was a gift of $10,000 from the estate of Eleanor Mary Cooper, that's with two O's. And also a GoFundMe page that was set up by Cindy Napoli, which to date has raised, or actually since December, and to date has raised over $4,000 for the same fund. So we want to accept those amounts and thank them for their donations and their efforts.
To a well-needed issue with the seniors in town is transportation.
That's fantastic. Do we know if they're gonna keep that GoFundMe thing up even though they hit their goal?
They're, it's still up, I think the goal was 3,000 actually,
Yeah.
so they exceeded the
I thought they
goal.
gave us some already. Isn't
We have
this?
some in hand, but
Oh,
this would,
nice.
this motion would allow you to
Yeah,
Take the rest out.
take the
Okay.
rest of it
Gotcha.
as it comes in, yeah.
I think it's over 10 grand right now.
It was,
don't know if it got
that
that
number
big,
as
did
of
it?
this
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah, but I thought there was another one that they had
Cashed out
GoFundMe.
already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
cashed
don't
out.
know.
Yeah.
Very
Okay,
good.
money's good. It's good for the seniors.
Yep.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 51A, 53A, to receive unsolicited gifts for deposit in the special gift fund for the transportation program of the Department of Elder and Human Services. One, from the estate of Eleanor Mary Cooper, $10,000, and two, from a GoFundMe for Littleton COA Transportation Fund of $4,185 to date.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. All right, Amy, if you want to join us. The next one up is two properties under Conservation Commission / Planning Board. First one is the composting facility at 134 Taylor Street. Second is Cloverdale. We've got Amy Green here from our Conservation Coordinator to give us some updates on, we can probably start there.
Good evening. I think Chase Gerbig is coming, and he knows a little bit more about Taylor, so if you don't mind, I can start with Cloverdale.
Sure.
Because I might know a little bit more than he does on that. That was, I'm guessing you're probably familiar with the site when you drive by it coming in from Acton, where they did a lot of clearing to do the meadow restoration, the pasture restoration in there. So that was from, it was funded under the Community Preservation Act, voted in 2014. I think there had been one round of solicitations, which did not get responded, or no one came in for the bid on the first round of bidding, do you recall?
You're,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And then, but we got order conditions in October 2015. And the work was completed in about November of 2016. It got pushed off a little bit, initially because of weather, and then because the guy had a subcontractor problem, so it dragged on longer than it should have. We have been watching the site, especially because it's so visible, and we did, people have been getting calls about it, because it looks like they're clear-cutting conservation lands to put up a house or something. It had a bad visual to it, because it was 4 acres in there. And I had been out there after about the 2-inch storm back in October, and the 2.5-inch storm in November, and everything looked fine at that point. And then frankly, I just sort of stopped going out, because it got off my radar. But then the Concom did get some comments, and I went back out January 31st, and there was an area where some runoff was actually coming in from Great Road, working its way through the site, and there was a plume of sand, maybe this big. Most of it was above the erosion controls that were down there, but some had actually spilled over. So Rick, Jim, and I went out there 2 weekends ago, I guess it was now, and there was a big pile of wood chips that had been left on the site, and we took those, which other contractors had done, and spread it across where the erosion was happening. Of course, now it's buried anyway, and we'll be keeping a closer eye on it. I was gonna dig out the sand, but it was rock hard when you're out there, so I have to wait for it to melt up a bit. Walk the entire line of the erosion controls, which are the wattles, admittedly small wattles along the side, and they have compressed because they've been up there for a year, but they're still functioning, except in the one area where they got overtopped. And that's the basic of Cloverdale, and I guess one of the comments had been that someone had observed that they had buried stumps on the site. which actually was part allowed under the contract. So maybe going forward, that shouldn't happen again, but given that it was just going to be a field condition.
What is is there any conservation regulations in regards to burying stumps? I hear that's a no-no.
The conservation, it's not under, the Wetlands Protection Act or anything like that. I do know that there are issues with burying stumps, stump dumps. And I think it has to do with the volume. So the contractor had the option of burying them, taking them off, doing a mishmash. There are large rocks need to be buried as well. So what exactly those other regulations will be, frankly, I'm not familiar with them.
Okay.
But I will become so.
Yeah, I mean, is it a planning board issue? Is there other town regulations that, may have been violated? I mean, I'm sure it's not the contractor's, it's not the contractor's fault because we allowed
Because
him
he
to
was
do
so
it.
directed, yeah.
Exactly, so. But I think that was Chuck's main issue.
That was-
Do you have that email or, because I don't know what questions.
That was it, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just, in respect to that, I think I had something to do with
And
the
Rick,
contract.
we know who you are, but.
Oh, Rick Finley, 46 Beaverbrook Road, Conservation Trust, working on this project. When, I think we permitted it initially because we knew we were cutting down hundreds of good-sized trees, and our goal here in combating invasive plants was to get everything mowable. So we felt that burying some stumps that we could not grind made sense, because we had 100, underground stuff rotting anyway. I mean, there's not that big a difference between what's happening.
Well, there is if you're not supposed to do it, Rick. That's the thing.
I wasn't aware
I
that.
don't know anything, I mean, in conversations that I've had with Chuck, was an issue for him. And, you hear from developers and stuff, that they have to truck stuff out. They have to pay for getting stumps up to Lancaster to be ground.
Right.
Or to pay to have somebody come in and do the grind thing, so. That's what we hear out in the street, so.
Amy may disagree with me on this point, but I think when you're working on conservation projects, there is a slight difference. You're not a contractor. And we're generally permitted to do.
Law's
things.
the law, bylaw's the law, I don't care where you are. If
Well,
it's
dumping
regulated,
stuff is not-
if it's regulated by law, and I don't know that for a fact, we should adhere to it,
There
period.
are regulations, and like I said, I'm not familiar with them, about stump dumps. Again, it has to do with volume.
Is it-
and
is
what
it
the
state
property is.
regulations or town
State
bylaws?
regulations.
That would-
I don't think the town has one, I haven't noticed it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have
We
tripped
don't.
over it
No.
before now anyway.
It may be
But for
good.
guidance
know.
purposes, maybe it's not a bad idea to have council, determine where that's at, just so we know where we stand.
Again, I think that's Chuck's biggest point was, we require everybody else, why are you special? You're not, if, in regards to that.
Absolutely,
That's the bottom line.
Right, that, we're not. I mean,
No,
it's town
no,
owned, and
exactly.
we're,
We're not.
whatever we're doing.
We're
we
not,
should be-
we, town of Littleton, us, yes.
Down McIver, 43 Foster Street, Littleton Conservation Trust. It may also depend on the land use. For conservation land, you're not building a structure. You don't necessarily, from structure, I don't know, but I'm saying.
don't know either.
The land use
I
may
don't know either.
affect it because, there are different expectations for different land uses, and this is never going to be built upon.
And
like
that
for
ownership won't be
houses.
transferred.
You still have, all the gases and the, decomposing and all that, compost and whatever.
We'll have to.
But I
We'll
like
have
Mr.
we'll have
Gla-
town
I like
council
Mr.
opine
Glady's
on the
idea.
jurisdictional.
And you can end up with kind of. a-
These are all good theories, and I don't think
Yeah,
anybody's
exactly.
pointing a finger, because nobody really knew what was applicable here. But for the viewing public, it's important for them to know that we at least find out what's appropriate, and that we,
No, we should all
stand.
learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Jim, I think it's great that we do this, and I would look into that difference, because we're building boardwalks through wetlands that a homeowner just would never even have a chance of doing. So there is a difference here.
The different purpose, different
Well, let's
uses.
just get,
I don't know about it, Rick. All I know is you're not supposed
I
to.
know, but
you're
this
not
is a
supposed
chance to
bury
look into it, and
stumps.
I go to these different functions and hear about this stuff, and I'll see if I can come up with any help for him that I can.
okay, very good, thank you. All right, Amy, anything else? Let's see. That you want to point out?
So, yeah, so that was Cloverdale.
All right, we'll go to Taylor Street.
Be keeping a closer eye on it.
Should we mention to Chase Gervig, One Oak Ridge Road, Conservation Commission? At our last meeting, we also discussed that you guys are burning some brush, and I'm sorry, I came in a minute late, and if this has already been discussed, I
Not yet,
apologize.
no.
And the Conservation Commission has asked the Conservation Trust to make sure that abutters and the public is notified when that brush is burned, because it's such a high-profile property. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, but it will get attention. So we've asked the Conservation Trust to make sure to use whatever public channels they have access to let people know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's good to say one of the butters is actually doing the work there.
Okay, very good. All right, Taylor Street.
Taylor Street, do you want me to just take a crack at it, or
Yeah,
do you
go
have
for it.
anything? Okay, so Taylor Street, the order of conditions for that was issued in October 2013, and they just came back for an extension, because they're still working on it. And it is a terrible visual. It's a little narrow upland peninsula that was filled probably in the 50s or 60s, predating the Wetland Protection Act. So it's this narrow peninsula that sticks out into the cattail Phragmites Marsh. You can see it from 495. Everyone's been getting calls about it ever since they started. They did not fill any wetlands on it. It was actually capping 21E site. It did have some materials they removed and capped that, and there'll be a use restriction on
I'm
it.
sorry, 21?
21E site is a hazardous waste site.
Oh,
So
really?
in the 1960s, that site received
Peat moss?
building debris. Yeah, I wouldn't take any peat moss out of there right now. We received building debris from some development in Boston.
Well, for a burn, a major fire.
Uh,
The
The Charlestown fire, I think.
And so there's soil contamination associated with that. But it has been closed under the Massachusetts contingency plan. An opinion has been rendered by a licensed site professional that it's safe to use, subject to an activity and use limitation, which is a deed restriction. So certain things that they can't do. There's no playgrounds that can be built there, for example. But other than that, the activities that are going on there are consistent with the closure of that 21E site and consistent with the order of conditions that the Concom issued in 2013, which may look different today under the bylaws that we've recently passed, but those aren't the relevant bylaws for that 2013 order of conditions, so.
So when they come before you again, you're gonna take into consideration the new bylaws before you recommend the new orders?
Our bylaws explicitly have a grandfathering clause, and someone who has an active order of conditions that was instituted prior to enactment of those bylaws is subject to the old
Okay.
bylaws. So, that said, we'll certainly.
So if they want to do
It's a
something
sensitive-
different, it would be,
Sure.
but, they can do what they're doing.
Are there monitoring wells there, did you say?
No, I don't think there ever were.
Okay.
I was out there when they had first excavated.
But you said, when you said there was 21 East site, usually you'll have some sort of.
I don't think there were groundwater issues.
Okay.
I think it was just, it was almost, well, you know more about it.
Yeah,
It's
there
almost
was
solid
an
waste.
investigation of the groundwater. I don't know if there are any active wells, but the 21E determination was that it's soil contamination, not groundwater or surface water contamination. And so they instituted a cap. Essentially, they put clean dirt on top of it.
Which is just a big playground, by the way, for big machine,
Yeah, well, yeah, a different kind of playground.
big boy playground.
So in essence,
That's, and those are the questions that I got when it first started, you saw all that activity out there with the rocks along the banks and.
Oh, I almost had a heart attack the first time I saw it, yeah.
How much is being filled in, and actually, I was talking to Roland, I think I talked to you a couple times.
I think, yeah.
So, and then I saw the DEP number up there that did that pond or the water retention
Front, yeah.
up front, so. Really, all they're doing is mixing dirt, right? It's all dirt.
They haven't even quite finished bringing it to grade yet. And they do, as part of the order of conditions, they do have some structures out there and a septic system, which it sounds like they're not in any rush to build that piece of it. They're more worried about using it for their own operations without the storage piece of it.
Hopefully Chuck's at home sick, hopefully he's watching and he can, he satisfied all his questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other updates, comments, questions on either of these properties?
Nope.
Thank you very much for coming down
Fantastic,
and looking
thank
at
you.
the analysis.
Anytime.
Thanks so much.
Oh, why don't you say amend conservation restriction?
Oh, I am, but I'm going back to my class of work.
All right, moving right along here. Item number 3, open space properties. First up is the Smith property. Yep, the Smith property. 189 Whitcomb Ave. Hello again.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Who was here 10 years ago, I would guess, when the board originally, or someone was here, I know I was here 10 years ago when this first came to the board, to approve a conservation restriction that the town is not a party to. It's the Littleton Conservation Trust and the Smith family that are the parties, but under the state statute, a local board of selectmen has to approve any conservation restriction, so that's the reason why it takes action by the board of selectmen.
Correct.
And I think that what I've been able to distill out of the voluminous documents is that in order to carry out the original intent of those parties, the owner and the trust, to, at this point, sell off a piece of property for, or at least one for development for a house. We've come to that point. House is ready to be closed on. It's built. It's ready. It's ready to go. It's just
Right.
that the bank that was looking over the transaction saw some issues with the conservation restriction that required fixing.
Correct. So this conservation restriction that was put on record 10 years ago has a strict no subdivision clause. So in order to carve off the house and sell it independently of the rest of the land, we required an amendment to allow the subdivision. And then while we're at it, we're cleaning up some of the language regarding forestry and agriculture. So that's what the amendment is basically all about, and it does require your approval, and it also, since the land extends into Harvard, the selectmen in Harvard have already approved this. Littleton Conservation Trust also has approved it, and it next will go by overnight mail tomorrow to the Secretary of Environmental Affairs, because he also has to sign it before we can record it. And it needs to be recorded before we can sell the property. And there's a young family that's very anxious to own this house. We've been delaying them a couple months, but they're hoping to actually own it on March 1st. So in the big scheme of things, I'm very pleased that you have a quorum tonight. I'm very pleased that you came out. Thank you very much. But I do need, I believe town council prepared a motion for your perusal.
And yeah, I guess, just clarification, the original restriction actually talked about this too, correct?
Yes.
Eventually selling the house and.
Right.
Right, so I
Yeah,
mean, this
it's
is
just that
nothing
the
new.
language that the attorneys or
Right.
whatever working for the bank saw, that the
Didn't like it.
language was
You know how
written
lawyers
maybe a
can be.
little too
Was done.
strictly.
I know you do.
So that's the substance of what the bank objected to, is just that it was overly restricted?
So there were very few reserved rights allocated to the house as well. So like they couldn't even pave their driveway, things like that. So this makes it clear that the land, I can show you, I have a plan here, which you're welcome to keep.
I think we got a
You
picture
got
of
it,
that.
you got it.
Copy of
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Yeah, so this land,
Yeah.
lot 1A that's around it, in that, it specifically says, there are a bunch of things that you would expect to do with a residential property that you can do. It just clarifies all of that.
All right.
Banks like to know that if they foreclose on a mortgage, that they have a property that they can sell without a major headache. So this gives them
And a
that.
buyer likes to know that they can do all the things they want.
That's correct.
That they
That's
have
right.
right set
Snow?
on with their property, so.
That's right.
And just to touch the obvious base, the grantees are the trust, and Dawn, your name appears here. You were present at the creation, and you're present now, so
Right.
you're okay with this?
Yeah, it makes sense, and I worked with Youth and Paul Smith. This is
Yeah.
their land and their house, and I crafted the conservation restriction with Edith, and,
So you're admitting to the mistake, is that what you're telling us, Dawn?
no, it's not a mistake.
Oh, well,
It
but we
actually,
need that for the record.
but it allows the subdivision to slice off 1 acre of the house.
Yes.
Plus a few more rights for sustainability. So it actually makes it much more viable for preserving the rest of the land.
Correct.
And provides a lot of flexibility, because as you've heard, it extends into Harvard, the county, And there are certain complications with all that
Okay.
for the next stages of trying
Just
to.
didn't want to take for granted, no
Yeah.
pun intended, that you
So
were.
we're all in favor.
Don't grab victory from the.
Ready? Ready?
Good.
All right. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to amend its vote of December 3rd, 2007, and approve and sign a reinstatement and amendment to the conservation restriction from the grantors Edith Boyd Smith Investment Trust and Paul Eugene Smith Jr. Investment Trust to the grantees Littleton Conservation Trust pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 184, subsection 31-33, for property located at 189 Wickham Ave. To one, allow further subdivision of the land, including allowing the grantors to subdivide and sell a 40,005 square foot house lot, and two, better describe and expand those residential activities allowed on the house lot, and better describe and expand the agricultural and forestry uses allowed in the entire parcel.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very
You have
much.
something you want us to sign?
He's signed, and who can act as notary here? Can you, or am I the notary?
You're
I'll
the
be the notary.
notary.
Okay.
You're it. You're it.
All right.
Because it's for conservation restrictions.
One copy? We have it.
The town has to approve it.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's that?
So even
Another
though
second
Do
copy,
we need
Keith?
second copy?
You can have a second copy for yourself, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the one original that'll get filed in the registry.
Right.
So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
it's a long time coming, but this does set the stage for something very good.
Yeah, we heard today that Harvard might be interested in buying a park in their town, so maybe something else can come together.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ray has other business with us tonight.
Okay, don't go far then. Next up, Mass DOT surplus property on Foxborough Road.
And I just, when I was reading over the motion and I saw, I put in red the language that is left out of the motion, but we should just record what the sale price is, or the purchase price, 197,651. And you may recall that town meeting in November appropriated $205,000 for property, surplus property. It's on Boxborough Road. It's across the street from the Joyce Williams property, which we talked about next. It's right next to the Crestview properties that we'll talk about after that. And the state had gave the town the opportunity to acquire the property before they went out and put it out to bid. Town meeting voted to approve it. The appraisal the state had was $205,000 for what they thought was 5.3 acres. Survey says it's 5.11 acres, so we were able to get them to give us a lower purchase price for the pro rata amount based on the same per acre cost. So this is the form of the motion that town council has come up with. The state Department of Transportation has given us the form of the deed that we would get for our $197,000, and town council has approved that. So the action tonight would be to vote to accept the deed. And we also have to make a determination of the procurement law about why this property is special. Everything we buy is special. This one is, and you have to say why. You don't put it out to general bid. We're putting it out because it happens to be located right, adjacent to other parcels that we're interested in, and we're trying to connect.
Wait a second, wait, what do you mean? We're not selling it, so we don't have to put anything out to bid. We're responding to, it's the state's priority to put it out to bid, so why do we need to make a determination?
No, in fact, whenever a town purchases property, the Uniform Procurement Act says we're supposed, if we say we want open space, or we want property for any purpose, the law says we're compelled to put that out to competitive bid, open to all comers, unless there's some particular reasons why we want a specific property.
Okay.
And we always want a specific property, so we always invoke this language, which is in the second part of the motion, which says what is special about this property. And every time we negotiate without bidding, which is frankly every time, we still have to fall back to the Uniform Procurement Act, which says we should have gone out to bid unless it was unique. And so now, at this point, we have to say what's unique about it.
Gotcha.
That's why that's in there.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Townspeople said go, I said we go. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote as follows relative to the acquisition of surplus MassDOT property on Boxborough Road, comprised of 5.11 acres, more or less, as authorized by Article 15 of the May 6, 2013 annual town meeting for the sum of $197,651.
There's a typo.
What?
There's a typo in there. It should say November 16th
Oh,
of the,
60.
November 16th, 2016 special town meeting.
2016.
So what happens when you reuse the same motions?
November 16?
Yes.
All right, so Article 15 of the November 16, 2016 special town meeting for the sum of $197,651. One, to accept the deed for subject property in the form provided by MassDOT, subject to final review and approved by town council. And two, to determine in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, subsection 16E2, that advertising of the purchase of said property will not be benefit to the town's interest because of the unique qualities and location of the property. Specifically, the location of the property on Boxborough Road is in the immediate vicinity of town-owned conservation land and is one of our only parcels on Boxborough Road without a residence that is available to the town and can be used for parking purposes, and direct town council to publish notice in writing for the determination of the central register required by Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, subsection 16E2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Joyce Williams property up next.
Now back to Ray.
Hello again.
Good evening.
Long time no see. All right, so we didn't get the grant on this
And we
one.
didn't get the grant, that the board had executed a purchase and sales agreement back on November 16th to allow us to go into town meeting at the agreed-upon purchase price of 1.27 million for the 35 or so acres. However, that deal was contingent upon getting a $400,000 grant, which we didn't get. Since we didn't get the grant, that deal falls. And there's continuing interest in there being a deal, so the next iteration is to go for the full amount, not contingent, with the purchase of the property, not contingent upon award of a grant. Nevertheless, we're still going to try to go and get a grant. That being the other part of the motion, that there's a $300,000 Land and Water Conservation Fund grant that the Littleton Conservation Trust has donated the funds for the appraisal that's necessary for that grant application. Amy is working on that grant application as well as she did the last one. We won't know. The idea would be to bring this purchase to the May annual town meeting. We will not know by then, though, whether we get the grant or not. So, and it would require funding. I mean, the 1.2 million would require funding from the Community Preservation Committee, which had come up with the 800,000 or so last time. We would need to up that to 1.2 million. So if you vote to go forward with this motion tonight, the next thing would be to go see the Community Preservation Committee for a recommendation for the additional amount. Bonnie has recrunched the numbers. We didn't, because we've been downtime with the storms, and Bonnie was at training last week. We don't have the recalculated numbers on, to show you the community
Balances.
preservation balances and so forth, but Bonnie's working on that. And the bottom line is that there's, just as there was in November, there's not a lot of money there for a lot of purchases. You can probably make one. And if it's this one, then, you know, we sort of won't have money to.
There was some,
be doing anything
if I recall, there was some that were coming off the debt rolls, though, within the next year or two.
Yeah, in fact, it was 400, that the 800,000 was a combination of 400,000 in cash, plus another 400,000 in borrowing that could be
Yeah.
taken on. The other thing that hasn't been that would need to be recalculated. Assuming that we put additional money into the community preservation, the blended CPA fund, and we do have, we've got, over $500,000 that we could put in that fund for all sorts of purposes. But assuming that more money keeps going into that fund, that would be additional money that you could use to pay for the debt service in future years, anyway. So,
And again, it's gonna be determined by the vote of town meeting.
right, that's right.
The folks of town are gonna make the determination.
And the other part of this is that, and I know that Ray had talked to us about this some months ago, that in addition to have a deal to bring the 35 acres to town meeting this time, that the P&S agreement comes with another opportunity, which you don't have to take advantage of, but which Ray, and which I should say, Mrs. Williams very much wants the town to be able to have, and that is to give the town first dibs on the conservation restriction on the remaining 10 acres, should we decide to do that.
Right.
There's no requirement to do it, but she wants, at this point in her life, to make that offer to the town so that it's there, and it would expire in August of 2019.
That's correct.
We'd have to close by 2019. So you'd have town meetings, so we can take it up in the future. We have the opportunity
Basically,
to
a
do it.
no-cost option to the town. You can do it if you want to. If you don't want to do it, you let it expire.
Yeah.
But at least this is an opportunity for the town to explore funding sources and things like that. If it makes sense, go forward, and if not. But if you find funding sources, you can go forward without further permission or from her.
Nice. And so what's shown here is parcel A, 35.11. It's also shown here. This one. This is the fee simple that would be purchased.
Correct.
Here's this lot here. From this lot, we would get a
Conservation restriction
Conservation restriction.
on the vast majority of it, approximately 11.6 of the 11.8 acres. The town would also acquire the trail strip in fee, which is parcel B. It's a little tiny thing towards the top of the property.
Okay. Yes, Rick.
Melissa, I just had one thing to say on that, the conservation restriction. In our efforts to preserve farms in town, that would be a wonderful way of preserving that farm, because that's agricultural land associated with, connected to the house. And I think we should be thinking of that, because the town really doesn't want to own farms. But that's, down the road, we should be looking at it in that vein.
Or any other discussion, questions, comments?
Nope, I'm good. We appreciate Ms. Williams and all her efforts to
Thank you. I'll
make
pass
this,
it along to her.
make this part of the town of Littleton. We really do.
Yes, sir.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote relative to the proposed acquisition of conservation purposes for 35.11 acres plus trail and signage easements at 31 Boxborough Road, RO 5-13-0 for $1,273,758 as follows. 1, to approve and execute a revised purchase and sales agreement with owner Joyce Williams, to request funding therefore from the Community Preservation Committee, and to insert an article therefore onto the warrant of May 1st, 2017 annual town meeting, and 2, to authorize submission of the grant application to the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs under Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund Program for $300,000 towards this purchase.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. I have 4 copies of the purchase and sales agreement for your signature.
Sure.
And while I have the floor, I just want to thank everyone who's been involved in bringing, actually both of these projects together. The Littleton Conservation Trust, Keith, Amy, Town Council. There's been a lot of people who've been putting a lot of good effort in helping to bring all these documents and these deals together to the town. So it's been great working with all of them, and it's nice to be able to have an opportunity to say that on the record. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Ray.
Ray. Always a pleasure.
Yes.
And if I may also, there's a couple of things that need signing for the actual grant application, if you want to do that tonight.
We start a little, we've got a tray.
It just needs the chair's signatures.
Down there. and people go.
Yeah, and just point out, actually, that's a large grant we're going for. We're working very hard for that. But also the smaller grants for Clover. So we're working very hard to bring in money.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Should be on the page that I have on the top. I need you signing here.
Oh,
So the-
we go for stickers and we immediately
Yeah,
start
front
signing
page.
there.
What's the word?
The sticker is where the page gets inserted after you all sign. So it's the top page that
Oh.
I gave you.
Oh,
The
what-
inside documents are the
Well,
attachments.
there was something we had
Oh.
attached, we did sign something else in
Yeah,
here.
you
though.
did.
Yeah.
But this is the purchase and sale.
And is that just for
agreement.
the chair, or is that everybody on this one?
With me, it's fine if the chairman alone signs.
That's
Okay.
fine by me.
It's also nice.
You sure about that? No one will believe this signature.
Can you hang on to those? Just-
Very good.
That.
Oh, sorry. There
Great.
you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We don't sign that other page in there, or is there?
No, you don't need to at this point. You'll do
Okay.
it if you actually exercise
I
your
got
option
you.
to buy.
Well, I've already committed myself, apparently. I wanna-
Get some copies of this in a moment.
Okay, very
Creature of
good.
habit.
Me too, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the last property in this section, Home Scout Properties on Crestview. I just wanted to, at least, it was raised to our attention, just wanted to at least see if there was any comment on it. It's not on our radar at all, but,
It was on our radar tangentially, I would say, because the MassDOT property, and as you can see here, you've got, this is Boxborough Road, Joyce Williams property at the top, the MassDOT property that the town is acquiring at the bottom, and then right to the east of the MassDOT property are the three parcels owned by Home Scout LLC. They're on Crestview Road, and together they are assessed at $538,500. They are being offered to the town for $575,000, which is a per acre price of $48,400. And just by comparison, the MassDOT property, the per acre was $38,600, and the Joyce Williams property would be $36,200. So it's on the agenda that the chair said where we've been contacted to, and it's in the neighborhood. I believe that the MassDOT property, when it was, that there was expression of interest from the developer in the MassDOT property, which has since is being purchased by the town. And whether that limits the development might have had access out to Roxborough Road if they had MassDOT property, but their access here is just on Crestview. But it is offered if there's interest, and I just, to sort of underscore what I said before, it's additional, there's a limit, there's an upper limit of what we can spend for open space purchases through the Community Preservation Fund at any given point, and I'm fairly confident that reaching for the 1.2 million in the previous agenda item would just about max out what we can do right now. If we had additional money over the next 2 years, I know Ray would like us to consider buying the CR that we would have an option to. That would, if we did everything that was on the list, we'd be doing $3 million worth of acquisitions, which we can't afford to do all of those all at once.
okay, well, like you said, I at least wanted to open up the discussion, see if there were any thoughts or comments, but,
I
really good.
think we should share the availability of this property with the usual, suspects, Conservation Commission, Trust, Planning Board, whoever else may identify.
Yeah, and they were alerted once we got the, list.
Any feedback from any of them? And I think the other piece is, it's $10,000 more an acre, so.
I brought that to the,
Not all land's created equal, there might be a reason for that.
well,
Land's only worth what people want to pay for it, too.
This is true, but our process is to go out and get it surveyed and
Right, we would pay for what an
Right,
what
an
the appraiser
appraisal.
says it's worth. Yeah.
So, but I think, bringing it to the forefront just to talk about it, and let's see what the town says, and if we get any feedback from our commissions and trusts and planning board or anybody else that may have. a
We're
comment
also
on it.
looking to schedule a meeting. I had talked to Bonnie about this a few weeks ago, and we're just sort of dealing with budgets and a lot of stuff, but once that's done, we're looking at having a joint meeting with some of the land use boards, Board of Assessors, for example. We want to look annually, and with Conservation Commission, we want to look at the so-called chapter land, what ones are coming off the books that might be in play suddenly, so that we're aware of those. And essentially have a discussion about how we can do some.
It was actually one of our goals, I thought.
It is.
Yeah, so I
Yes, it
mean,
is, yeah.
this is a good jump to it.
Bring it all together.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And staff had raised with the master plan consultant, I think something that's on their radar screen as well, about wanting to have a mechanism for choosing priorities
That was on
in
the.
open space.
Yes, well, we brought that up
purchases.
ourselves,
Yeah,
you know.
So that's
So we'll
that.
look for some more feedback then from the various boards and see if there's interest. Okay, thank you, Keith. All right, that's it for the open space properties, which brings
Oh,
us.
on that one, do we owe anybody a reply on that to update them on the discussion?
I will give him.
Mr. Gianetta?
Yeah, I'll let him, yeah, I've been in touch with him and said it was gonna be on tonight's agenda, so we're still taking it, but, thanks.
All right, very good. 7:30, public input. Public input. Yes.
Mark Reinbacher, Chair of the Library Trustees. And I just wanted to say that we have 2 informational sessions on the library scheduled for the police station on March 6th and April 10th at 7 p.m.
March 6th and April 10th.
The architect will come and give a talk like he did on the last presentation, going over the schematics.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And just in case the mic didn't pick up, which it usually does, but just in case. So that's the update of the library, March 6th and April 7th.
April 10th
Sorry, April 10th at 7,
at 7.
at the little LPT headquarters. Okay, very good, thank you. Any other public input? All right, members' updates. Mr. Carr.
I'm good.
Mr. Glavy. I am also good, how about that? Okay, selectmen goal updates, anything you guys want to bring up?
It's gonna come up later on in the evening on the sewers.
Yeah, and master plan is kind of cooking and rocking and rolling, we talked about that too, so. All right, moving right along, we are at item 5, which is the May 1st, 2017 annual and special town meetings.
Item 5 is the budget.
Nope, it's the budget, that is.
But you will be at item 6 soon enough, because Bonnie is not able to be here tonight, and did not, and since we had our last meeting on Tuesday, she's been either in classes or on a snow day, and has not had a chance to revise. She was hoping she'd be able to revise the budget figures and bring that to you again prior to 2 weeks from tonight, which is.
As long as we get it
Yeah,
in
you'll get-
advance, like
You'll
not
get
like
it
the
later.
Friday before.
Yeah, you'll get it later this week.
Okay.
But just so you know, that we're working on revising the numbers, fine tuning, revenue estimates, and
And our next joint meeting is 2 weeks from tonight
2
with
weeks from
everybody?
tonight at our meeting,
Our meeting,
yeah.
I just have one thing. Chief, you had down here with the 19th officer. You got a vacant sergeant position. What are we doing with the vacant sergeant position?
Right now,
Yeah.
getting ready to post it and come out, you gotta come back to the board, because I'm gonna need a couple of board members for the oral board and stuff.
Okay. So we're moving forward with that? and-
Yep.
Okay, good. When do you think that'll be done?
We have to post for a month by contract, so the posting will go out this week, and I'll ask for an abbreviated posting from them. It'll take 2 weeks, and then probably take 30 to 35 days to get the whole process done. We'll do the assessment center, we'll do the oral board. Realistically, we're probably looking at a July 1st appointment date, because there's the anomaly in the contract now, because of the way things are done, that July 1st automatic raises. So if I appoint someone on June 1st, a month later, he'll go to a second step right away. instead of having to wait the year.
I know, but then aren't you gonna be backfilling and costing overtime? I mean, that's kinda crazy, don't you think?
Oh, no, the patrolman's hiring, I'll be coming forward.
No, I'm talking about the sergeant. Don't you need that shift sergeant? That's a shift sergeant, isn't it?
Right now that's being filled with OIC, just like it is the 2 nights a week up on late nights.
What clause is that in the contract where, well, I guess that's new to me.
Well, that's when the classification plan was adopted 3 years ago, we went to the July 1st dates for all the,
I think the old language said you had to wait a year.
Right.
And we took the language out.
and then what happened was it went to
So
July
we
1st
did.
dates.
More than likely, it's gonna be a promotion within anyways. You're not gonna hire somebody off the street,
No,
right?
but whatever step that they enter on, which I don't know, is that like 5?
Correct, what happened was, so whatever patrolman got promoted, he would go to the next highest step.
Yeah.
In the sergeantry. But the problem is, a month later, the next step kicks in and he goes up another step. You see what I'm saying? Within a month, he'd get a two-step.
Two raises in a
he'd
month,
get
depending upon when you
two-step
hire
raise.
them.
I think we can be proceeding with dispatch on the process and then make a business decision about what
Yeah,
the right
I mean,
day is.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. I'll be coming back to you with
You're down
hiring.
an officer and you're looking for a 19th. It doesn't make sense to me to keep it, 5 months, my opinion, but that's all you are. But I think process going and see how it goes.
Put you on the interview panel and you can raise havoc with them.
So that's the only question I had on that. But on the other piece.
Keep us updated, I guess, on, you know,
Yeah.
the process.
Well, you be getting something actually for your 23rd meeting, because we hope to bring the dispatch hire, and I'm hoping to also bring the replacement patrolman hire for the 23rd also, if
27.
I can get on the agenda. I was gonna talk to
Yeah,
you.
2 weeks from tonight, yeah.
We'll get you on.
You're there.
So, back to the budget discussion, they're coming to our meeting, right?
Yes, they're coming to us, yeah. Yes, that's what we offer.
And some paperwork that Bonnie's working, that'll be this week, not the following week?
Not a week from Friday.
Okay, good.
It'll be this week.
Good.
All right.
Weather permitting, I guess.
Right, that's true. Can't control that.
Okay, so town meeting.
But look, on our agenda, it says that that was 5 and this is 6. So
Yeah.
someone's playing tricks on you.
That's right.
What is that?
All right, so whatever item it is, it's the annual and special town meeting for May 1st, 2017. So tonight, we are just going to
There's a
discuss.
procedural vote to take, and that is to call the town meetings for the first Monday in May, and to open the warrants, and then to set the closing date, which is, by recent tradition, is 45 days prior to the town meeting. That gives us enough time. It used to be 30 days, now we do 45, so that there's enough time to prepare the voter information booklet.
Have we been keeping track of that? I mean, 45 days is a long time to, the printing process. Can we tighten that up a little to get more, instead of closing the warrant 45 days out?
You could, but the toughest part is, the toughest part is the control, let's say for when we have to get the voter information.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, have we tracked to see that 45-day notice, the printing process and all that stuff? Just I know, I don't pay attention to it, obviously, but.
Yeah, the town, what it backs up, the bylaw requires the voter information to be in the voters' hands 2 weeks before town
Yep.
meeting. We have to back up another week and a half, 2 weeks for the publication deadline to have it done. And then it's a matter of how long does it actually take us to do the work of formulating recommendations on the articles. And that would be the only thing that you could shorten, would it be if an article goes in and we only have 1 week to look at it instead of 3 weeks, then.
I guess that closing date, that's all I'm looking, because we always seem to be pushing up against that date.
Yeah.
To give us another 5 days, 7 days, or whatever,
Well, you could even, I would make the suggestion on this one, that if you wanted to have this, let's see, our meeting, we have the meeting that we have, the first meeting that we have prior to, or following the close of this warrant. Sometimes it closes on a Friday and then you have a meeting that Monday. You don't have a meeting that Monday. You have a meeting the following Monday. So if you wanted to push this ahead to March 24th, for example, that would fit because you have a meeting on March 27th.
It
And
buys
you
us
wouldn't-
another week.
And so it would give you another week and you lose nothing. So there's your week.
All we'll end up doing is kicking all decisions, the hard decisions, 1 week down the road. That's fine, I'm in favor of it
It just
anyway.
means more special yeah.
No, not more special.
Yeah, you'll do them
meetings.
at regular meetings.
We'll do them at
All right.
regular
Yes,
meetings,
yes,
that's,
yeah.
you know. So we'll go with the
For
24th,
the 24th.
Okay.
and let's take, kind of, take a pulse of this process, how it went, you know?
Sure.
Do we need another week, or just trying to?
Yeah, it'll work out fine now because the 20, unless you were gonna have a special meeting on.
The 13th.
On that,
Sometime that week, yeah.
week,
Monday the
what's that, the
13th.
20th? Which we're not doing.
No, to
20th
close,
March.
right.
Yeah, so if it closes on the 24th, which is what I've got now in the motion.
We have, right.
That
we have
works.
20th. Perfect.
Okay.
For the draft warrant here, I did notice, and thank you for putting it in, the Article 26 is a proposed home rule petition for that alcohol licenses, we talked about that.
Yes.
And the only thing I would say is we probably still should talk about it in terms of how many we would want to go for, because if it's just adding one, on the strength of the arguments we made before, we were really addressing the fairness of people who have beer and wine license currently at common convenience. You know, perhaps we should be looking at two.
Right.
Or have the option to go to two.
Yeah.
You know?
So there's two motions shown. One is the procedural motion of opening the warrants and setting the closing dates. The other motion would actually be to insert articles on the warrant, and I think it would be, well, since we'll, even with the additional week that we'll have now to look at, I think it might be well to just run through the list here. It won't take long, but just starting with a special town meeting, bills of prior years, operating budget transfer for the current budget if we need it, appropriations into the blended CPA fund. We definitely should do that. We have a limit of about $500,000 that we can put into the CPA fund. We have over $600,000 in mitigation funds that could be put in various funds. So, and that gives us more for the projects that we know we're going to do, and it invites the state matching funds. We put a capital plan, sometimes we put a capital plan article in the special, if there's a capital project that we need to have start prior to July 1st. We haven't done that analysis yet of whether any fall into this category, but we should keep it there. And then the last article that we've got for the special is that the water commissioners had authorized $200,000, or town meeting had authorized $200,000 in borrowing to purchase some property that the water department is buying for
Cedar Hill.
for Cedar Hill. So our proposed funding source would be to have, transfer it from, in fact, the water department's desire was to transfer the money from the water department free cash rather than borrowing. But the free cash hadn't been certified yet, so we borrowed, but made a note that what we need to do is come back to the special town meeting, essentially rescind the borrowing article, and instead fund it with $200,000 that would be transferred from water enterprise fund. So that's a procedural vote that is on our radar screen. I'll touch bases with Scott to make sure it's on his. We said we would do this, and so I put it on the list. Then for the annual town meeting, it's my understanding that what is usually the routine article of Article 2 to hear annual reports might be where we're where the town meeting is receiving the master plan update to take a vote to receive it, or whatever, procedural thing. I understand the planning board would vote to approve it, but from my understanding from the master plan update committee deliberations is to bring it to town meeting so that the voters are aware of it. What it might make sense to do, since the annual town meeting starts at 7 and we don't shift to the special until 7:30, that first half hour, rather than be a budget presentation, maybe that's where you put in the master plan update, so that we then jump into the special, and then when we jump back to do all of the financial articles, the jumping back could start with the FinCom's report on the budget.
We can discuss that with
Yeah.
PJ and Maren on Wednesday.
Yeah.
The only, looking through these articles, and I've heard from people in town, they're concerned about the library project. And being so, you got it down here as Article 20.
Yeah.
So sooner, so folks can,
Sure.
that seems to be a hot item.
If you want it very soon, just to make the suggestion, if you wanted it at a fixed time that you knew when it was, put it in the special town meeting, because then it will come up between 7:30 and 8 o'clock.
Well,
And
in that,
Just so you
special
know.
town meeting, there's nothing that should be driving it to the special town meeting than that. I hate to get into the practice of using the special town meeting for scheduling reasons rather than what
That's
it's
why
intended for.
that's what we did in 2010 for the Littleton Common Overlay zoning, because we didn't want to do it at 10, it was so important, and we worked hard so long on it, we didn't want people voting on it at 10:30 at night. So, when the zoning articles are brought up, so it was a conscious decision to put everything about Littleton Common, the overlay zoning, the seed money for the sewer.
I'm all for
So-
putting it as early in the warrant as possible on the regular warrant, but I think there's a rationale for the special town meeting that are projects that have to be begun before the year ends, or using current year money, reallocating, right? I mean, that's essentially
Well, you could use the argument that they need a vote by June 1st.
well, they're gonna get one a half hour later.
And just, yeah, we can certainly have,
The earlier the better,
yeah,
that's all
we
I'm
could have a
saying.
strategic discussion about where do you put
Are you
that. Yeah.
content with as early in the regular warrant as possible? And I'm not comfortable changing the use
Six
of
of
the
one, half
special.
dozen of the other, you know?
Yeah.
If we can do it up front, that's all I'm asking.
Mhm.
That's it, you know? I've got calls and concerns, so.
The only thing we can't do is.
Well, we can talk about it with the full
assign the
board, too.
operating budget, article number other than 4. Other than that, we can do it whatever we want.
Right.
Because people think of that as Article 4, so.
Not a
It could be
problem.
3 or 5, but.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we have the standard list of articles, the revolving funds, operating budgets, enterprise funds, capital projects, the community preservation budgets, personnel bylaw amendments, which are this year the 2% salary schedule adjustments to match what all the unions are getting, putting money into the 3 stabilization funds, stabilization per se, capital stabilization, and the debt exclusion stabilization. The trust fund commissioners have a $4,000 recommendation to continue the animal care assistance program. It's from a source of money, which is funding, which is only for animal care. So there it is. The property tax work-off program, this year, you have the goal to increase the senior amount from 55,000 to 80,000, so we're proposing to do that. I don't know if you want to change the veterans number from 7,000 to something higher, but just to have that on your radar screen.
Has John requested anything to that?
No.
No?
No, I'll have a further discussion.
Yeah, have a discussion with him, for sure.
And then a procedural motion to allow us to spend the Chapter 90 funds that we get from MassDOT. Oh, and I should have mentioned that the order in which these are bunched anyway, it follows the recent practice of financial articles first, followed by those requiring supermajority, and followed by all other. So in the category of supermajority, all of these require 2/3 vote. And zoning amendments, there are 3 that are under discussion by the planning board. Their consultant is working on two of them for the senior residential developments and accessory apartments. That we have, in your draft warrant, you can see the draft language that's currently before the planning board. That's not final to any degree. The third zoning amendment that's proposed would be a temporary moratorium on retail sales of recreational marijuana, following a bylaw that was passed in West Boylston, I think. The issue there is that question 4 that passed in the November ballot allows for recreational marijuana sales, and it's unclear if it might inadvertently allow for dispensaries willy-nilly, where our bylaw doesn't allow them. We've only, our bylaw allows for cultivation site for medical marijuana. And since we don't have anything about retail, there are a number of towns who are preemptively putting a moratorium on the warrant. The Attorney General has approved one, so she will approve any that come along, and there are a
The
lot
state
of folks
did the
that
same
are.
thing, right?
The state put a 6-month moratorium on
And
it.
they're developing
And
regulations too.
Right, right,
So
so,
this makes sense to
so
do it
more
until
time
the
is
state
needed.
gets its act together too.
there's a article that would deal with the Town Hall Middle School, Russell Street School parcel that we shared, the assessor's map and parcel, that we're we're procuring a survey that Chris Stoddard, DPW, is handling that procurement. We had, in our discussions with the school committee, indicated that we were going to flip those properties that ought to be under our control. We would seek to have them give to us. And then the athletic field, which is under our control, we should flip to give to the school committee, so procedurally. Then the multi-part library building project conditional approvals. As I say, we can put it wherever you like, and I think it would certainly be helpful to have it at a specific time. The component parts of that are approval of the schematic for the plan, authorization to apply for, accept and expend any grant funds, and thirdly, to transfer control of the site to the library trustees of the slope site. All of those articles, that article would be written, rather than have 3 separate articles, you might as well just take one vote, because it's either you get it or you don't. It wouldn't make sense to carve it up into separate ones. And it would all be conditional upon subsequent things happening. It's award of the grant and a subsequent vote of a future town meeting to appropriate the local share. So we've got the draft form of an article that town council is preparing, and we'll have further discussions about that. Then let's see, acquire land at 101 Harwood Ave for Mill Pond Restoration Project. There was an offer several months ago of property to be made available to the town as a gift. And town council has been working with the owner's representative on that language, which we've got in this article, so we'd hope to bring that forward too and accept the gift. Let's see, then the Joyce Williams property at 31 Boxborough Road, which the board just voted on. And then there's a procedural motion, part of the supplemental prior borrowing to apply sale premiums to pay project costs. It's a change in the law that was approved by the Municipal Modernization Act. It would give the treasurer some additional flexibility on how projects are, how the borrowing is paid for, and the treasurer has asked us to accept that. We can talk about it with Steve at a future time. Then the remaining articles, town bylaw amendment, something to deal with town meeting, what's on the table, a repeal, and replace the ballot and checklist, or what other alternatives we should come up with. That's a reminder too, we had to postpone the meeting that the moderator had for last Thursday. He's only available
This
this Thursday, for another meeting, and I've not gotten back to him.
You have another meeting?
I've got, any given night, I've got two other meetings that I would have to be at that night, but nothing at 5:30, if that's,
Yeah, I have the.
Thursday, this
LMA.
Thursday,
this
right?
Thursday.
Yeah,
I did too, the LMA.
I think it was this
I know,
Thursday.
Annual
I
meeting.
know.
It kind of kicks off at 7, so to your point, if we did it early, I could do it. I mean, is there a time crunch before our public input meeting, huh? Or just thinking-
2 weeks from tonight is
Yeah.
when you're, is.
Or do we push that out? Because that'll be tough, I think, Thursday, trying to get us all together. I don't know, what's you, what do you looking like?
I'm good 5:30 on Thursday.
5:30?
Okay.
I could do 5:30.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
got two of
Thursday
us.
at 5:30.
But we'll still post it, just.
Yeah, just in case someone else shows up, that way they can deliberate in the dark.
Make a note of that, Clancy, to repost for this Thursday, the meeting that we didn't hold last Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and,
This would make it stop snowing, I mean.
I know, it can't, yeah. gee.
All the overtime he wants.
Bonnie has asked that we follow another provision in the Municipal Modernization Act and adopt a bylaw dealing with departmental revolving funds. It would, in essence, in the long term, it's going to cut down the length of our revolving fund vote, because we would instead of every year voting all the text, as we do in Article 2, you would just vote the dollar amounts, but you would plug those dollar amounts into a bylaw that's passed once, and then you change the dollar amounts each year. And supposedly that's streamlined, so we'll do that.
Still gotta come up every town meeting.
It still has to come up, yeah, I wish that we could just do the bylaw and then not bring it back, but apparently not. Hope maybe in the next weed
But
whacker.
just set
bill.
limits on it, you know?
Maybe in the next
weed.
weed whacker bill, we can
Yeah.
do that with the governor, so. Then there's a proposed home rule petition you could do for package store license or licenses, whatever you like. All I did was take the language that just passed the legislature and cut and pasted it in there. If you want it to be in the plural rather than the singular, we can do that. And the final three articles here are just routine articles authorizing borrowing and compensating balance agreement and personal exemptions. So that's what's on the radar screen. Good.
Digging into the weeds, you might, Madam Chair, Article 7, Keith, and the various capital programs, I know, I would think under Article 8 is probably where we should have the second phase of sewer study engineer cost funding, because we were promoting that as a three-part cost, and we've funded one part of it. And we got the other similar articles in there, master plan, Clean Lakes, Mill Pond.
Yeah, so we should, yeah, so we put, yeah, we'll need to plug a number in.
Right.
I guess the question will be, when will we know what the number is?
Yeah.
If we, well.
But
can-
we'll have we're gonna discuss that in a little bit on
Yes.
the, so we can set a date, hopefully, for the return of our proposals, right?
Yeah, I think that we could, with a May 1st town meeting, that the question would be, could we issue an RFP so that we at least have proposals in hand prior to May 1st? I don't know if that
Well,
works.
that's certainly our intention, was to have the engineer come and have something to say to town meeting, or be available to say, here's the engineer,
Yeah.
we've hired.
So if that's so, then we may not know that by March 24th, when the warrant closes,
Right.
but we would know it by May 1st, what the
Right.
dollar amount is in the article, so, okay. All right, so capital sewer part due.
Ready for a motion, Madam Chair? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, subsection 10, in Town Code, subsection 41-1, to open the warrants for the Monday, May 1st, 2017 annual and special town meetings forthwith, and to close said warrants on Friday, March 24th, 2017, at noon. Said town meetings will be held at Charles Forbes K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street, Littleton. 2, Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the following, we're not gonna do any
Not
insert.
that one, right?
I think you might be able to put some procedural ones in. I would say you could probably just looking at the special,
Well, is there any reason we can't put them on and then remove them between now and when we close the warrant?
you could, I think there are some that you don't want to put in because we don't, we
Don't own
haven't
them?
gelled them yet, but Bill said, but just.
So
on
for the special town meeting, all right, so let's take a vote on that first one,
Okay.
on that first motion.
Yeah, the first motion.
Second.
I mean, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. So special town, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? All of them we can
Yep.
insert, right?
2, 3, 4, and 5, yeah.
And for the annual, we could do 1 and 2.
You could do 3, 4,
The operating, yeah.
3 and 4. We haven't seen the numbers for 5 or 6 yet.
6, yeah.
You want to finalize, you're still
We're
working
working
on the capital projects. I think you want to hold off.
Yeah,
We haven't
pers-
seen-
Personal bylaw, we can do
You
9.
do that, yeah.
Stabilization hasn't been
Stabilization,
done.
all of those.
Well, we haven't determined the amount yet, so.
No, but you
But that there
could,
will be an article, just a number.
yeah, there will be, yeah, you
All
can
right, so 10,
determine.
11, and 12. Trust fund 13.
13.
Senior we'll wait on that to hear back from Borowski.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
See if John, the veterans agent.
Okay.
15 we can do.
15 you could do.
Yeah,
You
right on the zone.
don't, you 22, you just did,
Right.
Private
22,
notice of permit
okay.
application sale, okay,
so you could
23.
do that.
22.
And then 27, 28, 29.
All right.
The
Yeah.
routine ones.
Is there any reason we can't put the library on there? We know you guys are going forward with it, right?
Well, I think just, let's talk.
We don't have it in its final form.
Okay.
I've got, there's some blanks that need to be filled in. We
Alright.
could certainly we can
Just-
take that up at our next meeting.
Didn't want to be telegraphing the wrong message.
What's going on there?
We're working
We know
with it,
that,
yeah.
it's a matter of where. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the following articles onto the May 1st, 2017 annual and special town meeting, subject to approval of town council. For the special town meetings, Article 1 goes a prior year. Article 2, FY 2017 operating budget line transfers. Article 3, FY 2017 appropriations, blended community preservation acts. Article 4, 2017 capital plan amendments. Article 5, amend source funding for acquisition of 34 Cedar Road for the water commissioners. And on the annual town meeting, Article 1, town offices. Article 2, annual report. Article 3, FY 2018 revolving funds. Article 4, FY 2018 operating budget. Article 9, personal bylaw amendments. Article 10, stabilization fund. Article 11, capital stabilization fund. Article 12, debt exclusion stabilization fund. Article 13, trust fund 4,000 DEHS, animal care assistance. Article 15, use of Mass Dot Chapter 90. Article 22, acquire land at 31 Boxborough Road. Article 27, borrowing authorization. Article 28, compensation balance agreement. Article 29, FY 2018 personal exemption amounts.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Start on that. All right, let's dig into agenda item 7. First up, both chiefs, police and fire, on adopting their public safety strategic plans, which I think it was our last meeting that we went
These
over
were, yeah, these were introduced at your meeting on the 9th of January, and it's part of our community compact to complete these projects, so we are mindful of the need to report back to the state that we've done what they gave us the money to do. And I think there were just minor edits in the final documents.
Yes, the shortened mission statement was adopted in ours, and then the cleanup of some names, and since there were some resignations and other things took effect, they were pulled out of the report, and everything was locked down, went over it again for some finalization. Obviously, when you go through the whole thing, it really is the goals in the back that's where the, rubber meets the road, if you will, and we've already started working on it. We had the we kind of rolled it out back at our departmental meeting we had a couple weeks ago. We got it in there, and so we're actually starting to take the baby step forward. Just because team training is done with this written part, they're actually still working with us on getting some internal, some of the internal, I guess, programs, for lack of a better term, or groups together and help us with the mission of that. So that's where we're at.
Just left you.
No, and we're in the same boat. We actually have a meeting with our planning group on February 2nd. It was originally scheduled for tonight, but we're going to meet on the 2nd and assign some of the responsibilities to get the implementation of that started.
You mean March 2nd?
Yeah, sorry, March 2nd.
I'm off for time travel.
It's a
And, but again, we're in the same boat as that. Team training is still working with us. We're still kind of waiting to get the final notes for our surveys and information and stuff like that. But, and then team training has also offered up some leadership class and other stuff to both departments that we could actually run throughout the entire district if we're able to get enough people to come to the class. So we're going to be looking into that a little bit further as well.
And a lot of that is not for Scott and I per se, it's to help start, as you saw, the succession planning and or just succession of what people's tracks are. Some, we've asked, in our department, and I know Scott probably has with his full-timers also, what's your track? Some want nothing to do with, okay, I may want to get a sergeant, but I never want to go to administration. Some want to go to the detective track, and we've already been moving with education programs for both kind of those tracks within the department, to help, because that's what keeps people interested.
Fantastic. Court, any questions, comments?
Nope.
I just one for Scott in regards to the paramedic piece. Did I miss something? Is it in here?
It is in there, yep.
Where is it?
It's,
It is.
it was dealt with when we did our day-long, the SWAT. It comes up as one of the goals in staffing. And then, enhancing the staffing and changing the,
I guess it's a huge change in the department's theory
10 and
and
11.
10 and 11.
Expanding in recruitment, our opportunities,
I just thought it would be more prevalent somewhere. I mean, that's a huge goal for your department.
So, and that is actually going to come in when we get the rest of his notes. That was one of the major items that was addressed in our day-long offsite.
All right. I just suggest somewhere fit it into, so.
Yep, it's, as a matter of fact, if you go to the back, page 14, it goes into the different things that were addressed. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be 14 on yours.
Yep.
Where the assignments and the programs, each of the goals gets laid out, so that it is part of that one as well.
Okay.
But I have to echo what Selectman Carr said, it is a significant addition in
Oh, absolutely.
the capability of the department, a significant departure, and deserves to be prominently
And
promoted
this
as
is,
such.
I mean, these are working documents as well.
Yeah.
So as our group continues to meet and we expand, we'll constantly be adding to this document. This isn't per se something that should be going up on the shelf. There are many working parts in that'll be assigned to different portions of the group, and everybody will have their input in it to put that together and continuously enhance it.
And all these goals that are on the back of all of them, I mean, obviously, some some will take longer to reach, some may not get, as you know, with your goals, some may not get reached in the 5 years for whatever reason, but, you know, you keep moving forward, and then you also, you know, as time goes on, there are some new goals that will develop, and then hopefully in that 4th year, you do exactly what we did again. It'll be easier this next time, I believe, is, you know, getting another strategic plan for the next 5, and the next 5, and just multiply it.
That's the only comment I had.
Thank you.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to adopt the best practices undertaken pursuant to its September 3rd, 2015 Community Compact with the Baker-Polito Administration with public safety strategic plans for the Littleton Police and Fire Departments, prepared by Team Training Associates and introduced at the Selectmen's meeting on January 9, 2017, as revised.
Second.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Just so you know, this will be going up on our website also,
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
so
Excellent.
at some point, we'll get it up on the website here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much, I appreciate
You're
it.
good on that commitment, so excellent. All right, so that brings us to 7B, 2 items under the Director of Public Works. Welcome. First up is the roadway improvement plan, complete streets, or any other updates in that category that we want to talk about.
Well, we're going to have Chris here tonight anyway to talk about the Littleton Common Sewer RFP document that we'd like to get out, and I thought, well, he's here, he's been doing an awful lot of reworking of the roadway plan, come up with some great ideas of how to make our money go a lot further, and as measured by road miles, and that it would be well to have him share with you some of the things that he's been up to. So I invite Chris to just go through his list.
Okay, so, yeah, as you can see, I submitted to you guys the, we'll start. Yeah, we can start with Nagog Hill. So, I met with our consulting engineer. I've been able to look through the design. It was at 100% design, but I looked through it anyways. I was able to save us approximately $160,000 in construction costs, just from what I would call unnecessary things for the project. It had more mix than it really needed. It had more drainage infrastructure. I think I was able to rework some of it to take advantage of some cost savings and really not be a detriment to the project. I was able to take some construction administration costs. I looked at New Estate's construction admin costs. This is kind of a comparable project. So before, I haven't received a proposal from them yet for it, but I basically told them to cut everything in half, which theoretically should get us down.
Living there, I can tell you that
Should be able to get us down.
get a drain about every 5 feet, and somebody should have known we were built on a hill of gravel. That's not really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I was able
That
to,
was my point exactly, for many years now, saying over-engineered.
Yeah, I just got on here
over-engineered,
last year.
Way too much money on engineering.
Yeah.
Do you recall you saying that a few times?
so one of the big ones, and actually, this reflects approximately $163,000 in design savings, or construction savings. We might be able to get a little bit higher. I have them looking at, they like to use ductile iron pipe when it's a certain depth, if it's too shallow. I think they can get away with RCP. By doing that, we could save another $30,000. But I have them re-looking at their numbers just to confirm that. So that's a hope, but not a guarantee. But like you said, as of right now, I can guarantee us, these are all estimate numbers, obviously we haven't gotten bids or anything, that we should be able to save about $160,000 on that project.
Great.
So have you reached out to water department too, just to, because I know they didn't want to replace the water line going up Nagog because they said there's only 12 people or 6 people that use it, and
Yeah.
the line itself is good.
Yeah, I looked at the plans, I haven't talked to them directly, but I would highly recommend to do it.
Okay.
If it was me running the water, I'd push to have it replaced.
Okay.
Just because it's that old?
Just because it's old, that's the type of pipe that's notorious for breaking. Yes, they haven't had a break yet, but we get heavy equipment out there for 2 months, we could start popping that main all the way up the whole road. And instead of spot repairing it, it's easier to do it at the time we're digging the whole road up.
Right, so, and I know we've had this discussion in the past also as a board in regards to who's gonna pay for it. I mean, the water department is still digging itself out. So I would make the recommendation that make it part of your project. Either way, the taxpayers are gonna pay
Yeah,
for it.
taxpayers pay for it at the end.
No matter what.
Yeah.
So-
Taxpayers, ratepayers,
Yeah.
ratepayers the same people.
So, I mean, it's, that would be my recommendation, but also make that connection with Kevin Hunt over at the water department.
Yeah, so moving forward, I don't plan, I have had a conversation with him, and he, in so many words, he basically said he doesn't have the money for the next 5 years.
Right.
Right.
So I've kind of
In
looked
our
at,
lifetime.
moving away from doing work on roads that need to have water mains replaced now, in the next.
Gotcha.
Basically try to do some work on roads that have a newer water main, still in poor condition. But I don't wanna, I'd hate to incur the cost now to do a water main, have to have the taxpayers pay the cost of the water main now, where we can push it 5 years, and then the water department can pay to have it done.
Agreed, not an issue.
So, that's kind of my plan going forward, but like I said, he doesn't necessarily have a 5-year, he said 5 years.
So long as, when you make those determinations, for the 9 years I've been on this board, we talk about our road plan. Any manipulation to that schedule gets very heated with the residents of
Yep.
town. So when you do that, just come before us and say, hey, guys.
Do you wanna go over that?
Gals.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
wanna
sure.
talk about that
Yeah.
next?
Yep.
Okay, so, I looked at your road plan that Street Scan came up with for the priority roads,
Yep.
and I don't like it, in the most blunt terms. In my opinion, it's overemphasizing the reconstruction of very poor roads. So, and I have this spreadsheet here, the one that we said proposed FY17 what work, and then my proposed FY18 work. So, Federal Highway Administration came up with this big long equation, but it basically says every road has a certain design life. Every year, that design life drops by 1 year. And these different products, different treatments, increase that life by the, associated numbers. Right now, we're budgeted for FY17 to do reconstructive Negog Hill. It's 1.38 miles. So you times that by its estimated life of 20 years, it gives us a new miles so the whole plan is to be at net zero, and that your road network will never get worse and never get better. So we have 62.2 miles of road, so we need to be doing 62.2 miles, equivalent miles of work. So by doing Negog Hill for 1.38 miles at 20 years, you're only doing 27.6 miles. So you're actually having basically half of your road network life, you're still dropping every year. My goal next year is to do, with various different treatments, 14.38 miles of work, which is gonna give us a surplus of about 38.05 mile years added to the network. My plan is to get away from the reconstruction projects and more towards the maintenance projects. Crack sealing, fog sealing, microsurfacing, mill and overlays. You get more bang for your buck, in my opinion. They last longer, so I use the example, you do an oil change in your car to make sure it lasts a long time. You can just not do an oil change and your engine blows up in 10 years or 5 years and you have to buy a whole new car. Same thing with the roads. We put a little bit of money into the roads every 3, 4, 5 years. They last substantially longer than if we just reconstruct a road and don't do anything.
It's funny, I can remember this, the last time we had an engineer, Rick Durlin, that was his approach too, coming in the door, we increased the number of miles covered, but the bigger projects that did require reconstruction just got put off and then became terrible.
So there is a balance.
I mean, you can't, yeah, right. I mean,
You have to have a balance, I understand that. My approach, so in FY18, my approach is, and like I said, I'll bring a full list. I have a preliminary list now, but it's not finished, of roads that I want to do. FY18, I want to completely get away from reconstruction. But going forward, we can do small piece reconstruction, but not necessarily do an entire 1.4 miles like Negod. If I was here before, I probably would have only went to Neshoba, that was the worst section from Newtown to Neshoba. Maybe phase the project. It's not gonna cost you any more or any less, it's a better approach, because we can still do some of this treatments and this preventive maintenance. So that, like I said, that's my plan. I did take street scans, what they thought was the top 10 roads. On my list, I am going to do Foster Street, which I think was their number one. I'm not gonna do the entire length of it. I'm gonna go to about, I think it's Harwood. But my plan is to not reconstruct it, because I don't think it needs it. I think we can either get away with a reclaim job or a mill and overlay. So the cost that they had on there for like 600 something thousand, I can get away with.
Yeah, they like to reconstruct everything.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything.
like I said, this is just preliminary, but I think from King Road to Harwood, I can probably do it for less than 200,000. And I think it was for about 650 or 700, something like that, I believe it was, so. It's gonna be completely different than what the town's been doing in the past, but I think it's gonna work. It worked in every other town I've worked in, so that's kind of why I'm.
And as the board said, and this is meant to be a preliminary
Yeah, of
update,
course,
just
I
so
don't
you
have-
know what he's working on,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really great stuff that you haven't
It's all
heard
good
about
stuff.
and you need to hear.
Yeah, no,
But then we will, there will be a list of roads
I believe
that will be generated and we'll come back and.
preliminary was March 7th, right? I
Yeah,
think.
we're talking
Yeah, I
about
think the March meeting, I'll have something more
Yeah.
definitive.
But just the metrics, I mean, instead of doing 27 miles a year, if you do 100 miles a year
Sounds good.
with the same money.
With less, actually,
Yeah.
because we can do it, so you're spending 3.3 million, and I
all
talked,
No-brainer.
yeah, I talked with Bonnie, and she programmed 711,000 for FY 18, plus our 395 for chapter 90, so for $1 million, for basically $2 million less, I can do, well, whatever I said there, 13 more miles
But,
of road
you know,
treatments.
and I'm with you, and supportive. However, that doesn't mean that road that just happens to be expensive doesn't need to be done. It just,
Right.
we
Oh, no,
gotta work it
does.
into the schedule.
It does, no, I understand that, but the theory is, so, if we, in March, once I have this new software that we're trying to get, it's a lot more, it's easier for me to explain, we have some nice slides. Basically, they call them bands, so from 100, call it a PCI of 100 down to an 80 or whatever. The idea is to catch it before it drops into the lower band, because the lower band costs more money. So if you can do these slight maintenance projects on these good roads, the idea is to do heavy maintenance, heavy amount of preventive maintenance in the early years, and then what that'll do is that'll allow you to spend more money in the reconstruction ones, but not have lost the quality of your better roads. Does that make sense?
Oh, I get the concept, I'm just saying that.
Oh, no, I
In
know,
the
I
past,
agree.
roads like Bruce Street, New Estate became as expensive as they did, where they might have been candidates for the kind of stuff you're talking about,
Yeah.
had they been addressed earlier.
Exactly.
Although some drainage was needed, you know, I just think that a lot of roads are gonna fall somewhere in the gray area in the middle, not be either disaster cases or the quick fixes, and I trust you'll come back with a plan that'll.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what some of that, like, the mill and overlays are for those, are good candidates for those, where they're not great just to crack seal, but they're not, you don't wanna reconstruct them.
Right.
You know, the idea is, the grand plan, 10, 20 years down the road, is to get your road network to the point where you don't need to reconstruct any roads. You can
Right.
continue to do these preventive maintenances where you would almost never have to reconstruct roads.
I'm not gonna raise any
And,
more objection, I love the fact that you're doing
I'll tell you,
a
I'll give you-
review of
I'll
everything.
give you a great example. So this is a street in Bridgeport. The town line, here's Bridgeport, here's Fairfield, Connecticut. The town line's right up the middle. So in 2004, they got together and decided they wanted to reconstruct that road. So they did a 2-inch mill and overlay. Fairfield, Connecticut bought into this pavement preservation. In 2010, they crack sealed and microsurfaced their side of the road. This is a picture that was taken last year, and you can see the quality of this side versus nothing. So now they would have to come back in here and re-mill and refill this entire section of this road. Over here, all they'd have to do is probably come back in and do a little bit of crack sealing, and they're gonna get another 4 or 5 years. Crack sealing's 50 cents a square yard. This is $15 a square yard. So, like I said, I saw this picture last year, or 2 years ago, and this is what convinced me of pavement preservation techniques. I think it's, like I said, it's the way to move forward, to be the cost effective for the town.
Good.
Appreciate you looking into the different ways to solve the problem. Thank you.
And since we have Chris here, there are some other projects that have been not assigned that are getting moved ahead. Like the survey, I talked earlier, the survey of this parcel that
Oh,
we
yeah.
need to procure the services. We'll talk about the sewer next. We're putting together an RFP for the town building needs assessment project to help the very busy PMBC get going with that. Chris has also been working on stormwater, and we've offered an assistance if Park and Rec needs help with the field needs assessment. I know I haven't heard back yet from Park and Rec, but we'll stay on top of that to be of whatever help we can.
And complete streets.
And complete streets, that's going out to bid. We just got all of our documents.
Yeah, that should be going out shortly. They, like I said, I've taken over almost all the construction administration duties on that project, and they're doing some of the submittal reviews and things like that, but we took it from about a $10,000 contract down to a $3,000 contract, so.
Have we heard back from District 5 yet, or District 3, or MassDOT?
No. Heard.
Follow up to our meeting?
Follow up to
No,
our
we
meeting.
haven't heard anything back from that yet. I have been in discussions with Green and other engineering firms about possibly, District 3 asked us, potentially putting that on as a big tip project. I have talked to engineering firms about it, and they seemed like it would make sense, so it's an idea that, we're kind of floating around, and all the engineering firms basically said, let's get the master plan back first, and then let's assess, potentially a big project for the tip, encompassing King Road, or King Street, the intersection, and then Gray Road.
I think one of the problems institutionally for MassDOT is there's like, the TIP program is where the money is. And
Right.
so for them to,
Yep.
it's where they know they can go and get it.
There's
It's
just
it'd
things
be
though
nice
that
to-
down
be
the
nice to
corner
get
that
it
have to be
sooner.
addressed. These sidewalks are
Absolutely.
horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible, so I'm not gonna let up on that, but I just made myself a note to make a call tomorrow on that too.
Yeah, no, but most of the engineer, like I said, most of the engineering firms, their opinion was, let's get the master plan back first, and then we can go from there. Use that as a starting point.
Guide, yeah.
A guide, basically.
These are all important projects to the community, so appreciate you keeping us up to date, and please continue to do so by
Yep.
far. So thank you, and thank you for all your great work. Okay, any other questions on 7B1? Okay, how about 7B2, which is the Littleton Common Sewer Strategic Plan?
Okay, so we met, Keith, myself, we met with Bob Zimmerman and,
With,
I know I can't think of his
I
name.
can't think of his name either. Who was
The
our
consultant who put
from the
together
original
the,
project, yeah, who worked with Bob.
And I was,
Is he? Okay.
No, it's the guy who worked with him.
yeah.
I'll have to go and look his name up.
So from that meeting, I was able to get a scope of work for the next, I'll call it 2 phases of the Littleton Common Sewer. In the simplest terms, it's find out where we're gonna put it, who we're gonna get, and how much flow and how much it's gonna cost.
Bruce Douglas was the name
That's-
of the consultant.
That's the most
Yeah.
basic, simplest way to explain the RFP. So from, like I said, from that scope of work, I put the RFP together, expanded on his scope. We sent it to town council for their approval. They attached a contract to the document, and we're ready to advertise it with your blessing.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We really hadn't discussed, sending it to Highway Department. Keith, I think that was obviously a smart thing to do, as far as creating the RFP. And I did have some back and forth with Bob Zimmerman on the plan, and I know he supports the draft you have here. I got a few points to make. One is the issuing officer, I guess just as a matter of form, is the highway department, but that doesn't,
Yeah,
Well, it's the contract is awarded by the Board of Selectmen.
yeah.
in the
And so your
draft,
your
like I
agent
said,
will
in the
be-
draft, most of it was yellow highlighted, because those were just
Right.
fields I
Yeah.
hadn't filled in, because,
Well, I think it's just a reminder for the board too, that it shouldn't delay this at all, but for the actual implementation of a sewer system, we hadn't settled on that. We've had discussions about where it may best fall, and, I just want to keep that on the burner that we, whether it's using the light and water departments, having a discussion with them, whether they're interested in managing it, or whether we do it, in a DPW form. Those decisions are.
Yeah, those
yet
would be
to-
good discussions to have, because there's an apparatus that
Right.
would go along with running a sewer.
But that being said, this reference here to a selection committee, and I know, the board had designated Selectman DeCosta, myself, and I think we'd like to work with the both of you and Bob Zimmerman, unless he's involved in any kind of application, in which case he wouldn't be, but.
yeah, I believe, just from talking with him, I thought he had hinted on wanting to potentially put a proposal in,
Yeah.
or at least
Yeah,
a portion of it,
Yeah.
but I'm not, like I said, that was.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not really sure.
through this, I mean, he's a prior consultant to the town, but that, he hasn't been on the town's docket since 2013, 14, or whatever. So, we just need to ferret that out. If he's not gonna be part of any kind of applying team, then I think Chuck and I would probably wanna
Absolutely.
put together some folks to work with you on that. And Keith,
Maybe
he'd sent out.
maybe Megan, too.
Exactly, yeah. Some, folks from the neighborhood, I think, or property actually
Yeah.
falls in there. And, we gotta think about what kind of boards, water department, Board of Health, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And probably planning board too. So at least give them a chance to have some input into the process at this stage of it. You'd reference a follow-up meeting in the earlier email, Keith. I think we really ought to try to do that. I know, I'm more flexible work schedule-wise than Chuck is. He has a big commute, so if we can try to make that happen. I'd cut to the chase, I'd like to get this out on the street tomorrow, and I'd like to see the turnaround. I don't know what you're thinking on, but is something less than a month possible? A month is about as early as.
Based on the requirements of this RFP, I think you're probably looking at 2 or 3 months, just from site selection, because they're gonna have to be soil testing involved and.
Well, to award the contract?
No, to award this?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant to actually get.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about
for
to have
award.
somebody in-house.
Oh, yes, within.
It won't take us more than 2 months to spend the money.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I knew that part would be quick.
Wow, that's very
You're
aggressive.
gonna run out of money, you're gonna run out of money real quick.
No, I think, based on what we said last fall, although we can always go back and say, things were different, I think our commitment was to come back with an award, an RFP having been generated, an engineer engaged, and that would have an update on the first phase,
Yeah.
by this town meeting when we're looking for the second phase money. So if we were, say, to pick somebody or have the proposals due back by second week March, is that possible?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
That's all? Oh, if that's the
Yeah,
case.
by the time
2
we have
weeks
to
from
notice,
from the one that.
from the
it's
advertisement
advertised,
date.
yeah.
Oh.
So you're talking.
So say 3 weeks.
Call it
Yeah.
a month at, worst case
Well,
scenario.
because we're gonna need a little time to review it all
Yeah.
and get some.
Oh, but yeah, that would be get them back, then we have to review them, and then
Right,
it's,
right.
get the signatures on the contract, so you're really looking at 6 to 8 weeks to get an engineer on board.
Right, so for the first phase of it, we probably ought to be looking at, 2 weeks from Friday?
If you give me approval, then tomorrow I'll start, I'll have Katie start putting out the notices in the central register
Yeah.
and things like that, so.
Okay. All right, good. I mentioned earlier in the evening, the funding piece of it in the capital plan too, and I think that's about it. If we settle on a date, I'd like to go, let's do it.
I just have one question, and it's not about the RFP, but we did get that inquiry from the citizen on Goldsmith, wondering if she could plug in.
There's been a couple, yeah.
There has, and we're not at a state to be able to comment on that.
No, but I think we need to,
So, I can comment just a
Yeah.
little bit on that. So if we have to go into Goldsmith Street, if that was a potential, because you used Chapter 90 funds for Goldsmith Street, there's technically a 5-year moratorium from the time you construct to the time you can dig. So whenever, I believe you built in 2013, 2014? I don't know. If it was 2013, you'd have to wait 5 years, so it'd be 2018 at the earliest. That's not gonna be a problem, so
I was
this is
just
gonna
gonna
take a
say,
few
I
years,
mean,
but that would be the only caveat
I
to
mean,
that idea.
there were people who came up at town meeting, and the woman you referenced was one of them, but there were actually a couple others that,
But
they're
doesn't,
willing to pay to be in.
and isn't the zoning go up like 300 feet?
Yeah, but these people are beyond that, so,
they are?
yeah.
Okay.
But that's,
And that's something that.
we weren't specific to a map
Yeah.
on that. That's part of the process of the engineering, is to kind of
Exactly,
figure it
because
out.
there would be, I would, I guess, urge you not to necessarily just be confined to the district, because there might be real potential for residential connections, down, basically branching out from your, the Littleton Common Sewer District, I guess is what I'm saying.
We've had a few inquiries, we've had a few inquiries,
Of
not a
course,
lot,
and it's,
but
if it's
some
cost
from
prohibitive, it doesn't make
residents
sense, but
wondering if they
if
could be considered.
if you get an entire street worth of people to buy into it, then it might, like I said, it's all, that's what we'd have to have the engineer, do the
If
financial.
you, if the scope could include looking at what the, rather than taking, this.
Well, as written, it
this
does.
study
I mean,
here.
it's never been restrictive to that level anyway. Okay, I just want to make sure those things are, out there on the table. But I thank you, you did a great job, and, I just think I'd like to launch it and get a date on it.
Absolutely.
Good.
Ready? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the issuance of the request for proposal, RFP, for Littleton Common Sewer Strategic Plan as prepared by the Director of Public Works and reviewed by Town Council as presented with revisions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Also very exciting.
Great,
Nice.
thank you.
Thanks so
Well
much.
done. He's doing so much, and you hadn't seen him.
Right, no,
lately, and
that's
so
terrific.
I wanted to
Yeah.
get him in here.
Yeah.
Plum.
And,
No, not me.
please don't interpret a level of interest in what you're doing as being anything but that, not a critique. It's more, it's exciting to see somebody putting fresh eyes on, old assumptions, and, where you might go with that is, bodes well.
Good. Well, appreciate that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris, thank
So
you.
much.
Thanks, Chris.
You'll keep us updated on how quick that, we can get that out the door and
Yep.
set the, maybe we ought to have a proposed schedule that brings us between here and town meeting on the
Yes,
various
okay.
stages.
Yeah, I'll write that as a.
And then try to set up a meeting at Chuck's convenience and.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. All right, that brings us to our last item under 7.7C, Narcissus Road Tax Title Properties.
Madam Chair, if I may. Narcissus Road, we had neighbors come before us and ask us to buy these parcels of land for a septic system. And what the concern of the board was to be able to do a restriction on those properties so that no building can go up. Went to town meeting. We had a member of the finance committee, Mr. Champney, didn't think it was right that the town was gonna sell the property with the restrictions on it so that no one can build on them, and changed our motion to have the property sold at assessed value. Issue is, that means another house, because no one's gonna buy it for a septic system at $130,000. I know it's been my concern, and I believe the concern of this board, that, we're gonna be subject to another 40B with all the building going on in town. So if the town sells this property and the house goes up, we're just contributing to the housing stock, which means it's inevitable that this 40B, we're gonna be under 10%. So I would like to make a recommendation that we don't sell the property, keep it on the rolls, and be done with it. Because the original intent was to get a deed restriction so that a septic system could be put on there, so that the folks that are building the house on Narcissus, or what was the Oak Road, I believe, didn't have to put an 8-foot concrete wall. Unfortunately, the neighborhood is gonna have to look at a big concrete wall now, so.
Yeah, and especially, this is down by the Long Lake District, which is already overcrowded with lots of houses on small lots, so I couldn't agree with you more. I want to protect that as much as we can, so.
Yeah, I agree too. I'm frustrated that we weren't able to do what we intended to do, but just to put it out there is not, that kind of reverses our original intent, and hopefully not putting it out there would be, at least at this time anyways, would be what the neighborhood would appreciate more than getting it,
Neighbor
yeah.
or two.
So no action.
Can it?
So no action.
No action.
Could you take a vote to take no action, just so we know it's,
Sure. Make a
So-
motion that the Board of Selectmen vote not to take,
Yes, right.
not to take any action on the Narcissus Road tax title properties. U12, lots 111, 13, 14, and 15.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, nice
okay,
recap.
thank you.
All right, that brings us to minutes approval. Let's
right.
see how Clancy did. Not that I didn't already read them.
Mr. Glavy?
Yeah, there, just one thing I wanted to add, and I do think that you're doing a great job of capturing the essence of the meeting, but on page 3, second paragraph from the bottom, I'd just like to add the specific point where it says there that DeCoste believed that the common convenience would be best suited for the license. The rest of the board believed that Liquors on the Common would be the best holder of the license. I wanted to specifically get in there that, Selectman Glavy stated that, only one of these votes would put, or one of these votes would put an existing business out of business, and or one of them would keep them in business. The other 2 votes would put somebody out of business, and that was a key factor. I mean, it wasn't so much, I don't believe, on certainly not on my part, and from what I remember the others' discussion, it wasn't a preference of one business over another. It was as much the fact that voting to give it to somebody other than Dominic Seven would have put him out of business.
Got it.
Okay.
I will make that change.
Okay, thank you.
I thought that I had that in there.
Well, if you did, I didn't see it, but if you did, you could point it out to me, Clancy, I have no problem with that. That may have come up in one of the deliberations earlier. If it did, it probably should be restated down there, because that was kind of the, what we were deliberating.
Right.
Sounds good. I'll make the change.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd make the motion to approve the minutes with said amendments for the January 23rd, 2017 Board of Selectmen meeting.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. So that brings us to executive session. All right.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A, Clause 3, to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect of collective bargaining with the town's unions. Since an open meeting may be detrimental to the effect on the bargaining position of the board, and not to convene an open session thereafter. Aye.
You don't have a second yet.
Sorry, my bad.
Second, for the purposes of discussing, is this something that we should be discussing as 3 members, or is this something that we should have a full board?
Good point, it's not time sensitive. I mean, if you wanted to wait 2 weeks, there's plenty of other things the consultant could do in the meantime.
Perfect.
But
I'd say,
I think I
great
prefer,
point.
I
Okay.
think I prefer to have the
Apologies,
full
guys,
board
I did
here.
not even think about
Great point.
You were gonna sit around here all night anyway, right? Plus, the bean pot's been on for a half hour, and I gotta go watch BU.
No, that's a valid point.
Oh, so was that. Anyway, so you're withdrawing that motion?
I am withdrawing that motion, Mr.
We
Glavy.
have a different motion.
No,
Motion.
Yes, the motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, thank
Do
you.
I have a second?
Yes, second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just when you gave up on me, I followed through with the rules.
Nice.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Go BU.